Alrighty, here we go on a quick lap of my backyard trails. This should be interesting since I just broke the dropper cable on this bike, and I also just found out that the headset is a little bit loose, so it's going to be a creaky ride. Through the cinder block chicane, try to clear the cinder block jump, miss the roots. Woo. Over the ridiculously fun kicker. This is a one-way. Normally, or there used to be a jump here. That got repurposed, as you'll see in a minute. Here we go through the grapevine. The drop. Woo. Okay. This would be a rest moment too. Not so much when your upper post isn't working. Here we go through the concrete jungle. Woo. And over the suspension skinny. Woo. Okay, this is hard work when you can't sit down. That is a bit of a failed experiment. We'll talk about that more in a bit. Okay, I'm going to take a break, and then we will do the other loop back here. Alrighty, time to go hit the hip bone and the new and improved stump jump. Creak. A little wide. Woo. Okay, past the fire pit. We'll take a quick loop around the yard. And here we come. Woo. And then back out. Since I'm the only one who ever rides these trails, I can make them two-way if I want to. And then we will finish up the lap here. Oh, what the heck, we'll try this. Went well that time. A lot of times those like to flip over on me. Okay, here's the other skinny. No problem. This was supposed to be a jump. It doesn't really work that well. And then over the teeter-totter. Back out front here, and that's a lap. Alright, hope you enjoyed the first person lap. Let's go take a deep dive on all of these features. So this is kind of the main entrance to the trail. If you watched from last year, you'll know it used to go right through those trees. I never really liked that much. I've never been a fan of the tight tree squeezes, so I built a new line. Goes around the outside, put in a little bit of a cinder block berm. You can see I basically just buried some cinder blocks on an edge there, so they make a nice little berm to bank off of. Helps with keeping up your speed as you come back here to the jump. There's also kind of a ride around line over there. I don't take that very much. This jump, it's a little tricky. You have to pop off it a little bit because you don't have a ton of speed coming into it, but it's pretty fun and it can be cleared. And then that kind of leads you back into all of these roots here, which is a little bit awkward. I should probably move that jump so that it doesn't send you there. It sends you more kind of off to the side here where it used to go. I haven't gotten around to fixing that. It's not a huge deal. These roots aren't going to, kill you. It's just a little awkward if you hit one kind of crooked. So, yeah, that's about all I have to say. Oh, and this is called the Strip. I don't know if you saw the sign back there. I think that was up there last year, so I won't go back. But yeah, because it's just a strip of woods in, hey, Las Vegas, right? All right, so now I'm going to go take a ride through this from third person, and you can see kind of what it looks like from back here. lied and went back anyway. Here's the sign. Okay, and that brings us to this little kicker, which amusingly enough remains one of the most fun features on this entire trail. And all it is a piece of wood piled up on top of a cinder block. This year I did add a ramp on the back side of it, just for something to do as you're riding backwards down this trail. I did not find that one to be as much fun to try to jump, partially because it comes right off of the corner there, and also because with it being a little bit shorter distance, it just doesn't feel quite as good as that one, which I think that one's probably about the length of my bike, which is why it feels so good, because it's really smooth. So it's a lot of fun. Otherwise, not a whole lot of change from last year. Oh, one other thing though. So in last year's video, I mentioned that I tried to build everything out here in the field so that it could be moved, so I could mow. This year, I ended up not really doing that much, so I'm not sure that was such a worthwhile design goal. I've actually done a lot of, you can kind of see here, I've been mowing around this, and then I just come out and trim it with a weed whacker. That actually works fine, and it's probably easier than having to move everything and put it back and get it settled, because, you know, the cinder block's kind of embedded into the ground there now, and so it sits really nice, and if you move it, then you have to figure out how to get back in that exact same spot. So yeah, just something that might be interesting to anyone else who's building in a similar situation. Making these movable, not as useful as I thought it would be. Okay, so here we are coming into the woods section of the trail. As I mentioned earlier, there used to be a jump right here. I was never that fond of it, so it's been repurposed as something else, which we will talk about over there. But this trail coming off to the right here, for this trail, I call Through the Grapevine on account of all the grapevines over there and over there. And this is basically a better line. Ooh, don't want to miss that. I actually left one of the grapevines running across the trail. It's a little tricky because it's kind of running along the trail as opposed to across it, but it's actually not that bad. So I've left it because, hey, grapes. And so this was just to provide a little bit straighter line into the drop there. And so you can see the drop. Take a look at it from the side here. So it's just an 8-foot ramp up to a 10-foot platform, and then drop of about that size. So underneath all of the dirt there is more of that concrete that you see sticking out there. This is settled a little bit. Originally this was all dirt, but it doesn't really hurt anything, so I haven't fixed it yet. So yeah, this thing is really fun. I actually called it, see the sign, the Laughing Place. If you're familiar with the ride Splash Mountain at Disney World, it's a small drop that's really fun, which is exactly what this is. So I don't know, things to say about this. This summer it was really, really dry here, and these posts actually got pretty loose. It's not so bad now that we've had a little bit of rain. They firmed back up, but that was a little sketchy. So I don't know what I can do about that other than dig them even further down. And they're already, you know, 2.5, 3 feet into the ground. So yeah, not a whole lot I can do about it, but that's the way it goes. So that's really fun. And then when you come off of that, you come down here to just a little tabletop built out of an old paver and some logs. And once again, there's a bunch of that concrete underneath the mound there. That was just kind of an easy way to build it up and make a nice solid core for the jump. That one, about the only changes I've made to it since I built it, I did mellow out the lip a little bit. I found especially on my hardtail, sometimes it was a little bit too steep and it got really kicky when you didn't have any rear suspension to soak it up. So that's mellowed out a little bit. You can jump pretty far past it. If we walk over here, you can see there's this root here. kind of my goal when I jump off of this is to try to get my front wheel to clear that root. I don't always do it, especially if it's a little bit wet, but yeah, that's also a lot of fun. And then coming off of that, you just come down here between these two trees. There's a whole bunch of roots, hopefully you can see there. And so that makes this kind of a technical feature in and of itself. Coming into the corner here, kick the loose wood out of the way, and then just back around the loop here. So I'm gonna set you up in the stand and we'll take a quick ride of that line and then we'll move on. All right, and that brings us to the concrete jungle, so named because it's a rock garden built out of broken up concrete. You can see I even 3D printed a sign there. Turned out okay. The print was not great. You can see it the top surface is pretty bad, but it does the job, so whatever. At some point I'm going to hang that on the tree there too, so it's not sitting on the ground, but I haven't gotten around to that yet. So, not a whole lot to say about this. It's just a rock garden, and it's made out of chunks of broken up concrete. It's pretty fun. Not the most challenging rock garden ever, as you can probably see. It's fairly flat, but you know, there's a few things like that last rock down there. You gotta watch out for that because that one's pretty steep. This one right here in front, if you hit that one, that's also kind of a jarring piece. So, you know, it's a lot of fun. I'm really happy with this, and this was actually a really low effort feature to build. I just came out here with a tiller, tilled up the ground where the rock garden is, concrete jungle, whatever, and then just kind of placed all of the stones and packed them in with dirt, and it went really well. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Let's go ride it quick. Oh, and while we're back at the rock garden, I would be remiss if I did not mention this new trail that you may have noticed. I did not ride that for the video, and I'm not going to ride it now. It's still kind of a work in progress. I just cut it in. Basically, the point of this trail is to provide a little bit straighter line into the rock garden so you can carry more speed. It's kind of tricky coming off of this tight corner here. And it's also going to have at least one more feature kind of over there. But none of that is built yet, and I'm still working kind of on the line over here, so save that one for next year, but little sneak peek at what's coming. Moving on from the rock garden, we have probably the lowest effort feature out here, although actually that might not be true. The little wood and concrete block kicker out in the field might be lower effort than this, because this did at least require me to cut up the wood, but that's literally all this is. It's a bunch of cut up wood. When trees have fallen back here, I cut it up, I add it to the pile, and hey, we have a feature. So, not too much to say about that one. Some of the wood is kind of rotten, but oh well. So, now we come to what is maybe the sketchiest feature on the trail. I refer to this as the Tacoma Narrows. Too soon? I hope not. It's a suspension bridge skinny, so if I come over here, you can see it actually moves when you ride over it, which obviously makes it feel a little different from your average skinny. Also, it's got kind of two humps in it, so that's kind of fun. As I mentioned, I repurposed the kicker from out in the field. It's now the ramp off of this. It's a little sketchy, but you know, it works, so I haven't been all that inclined to do something different with it. Overall, this is really fun. I have fallen off of it a bunch of times because, well, for one thing, because these cables that hold it up and keep it kind of taut, they like to come a little bit loose, and if I don't get around to tightening them up, it gets really, really hard to ride this because it starts to get really wobbly side to side. So maintenance on this one is particularly important. I'm hoping that as the cables kind of stretch in, sort of like shifter cables do, that I won't have to make as many changes to them, but we'll see how that goes. Overall, though, I'm really happy with this feature. It's really cool to ride. When you do get it just right, feels awesome. So it's a lot of fun. It is tricky you can see this huge gap here. That's because, you know, suspending a bridge between the two posts like that just puts a ton of stress on them, which is why there are also the braces here. But even with those, I think it has sagged a little bit, especially down at that end. You can kind of see it if you look straight down it. It's actually tilted that way a little bit, and I think it's pulled in some. So, and the fact that this one is split, so it shifts more than it should, I'm sure does not help either. But overall, lots of fun. Kind of a cool and unique feature, so let's go ride it. Let's try that again. Nope. And see, I promise I can ride it. So that's a pretty accurate depiction of how this feature tends to go. A lot of times I'll ride it 6 or 7 times in a row and screw it up every time. Then I'll ride it 6 or 7 times in a row and get it every time. You know, I can't entirely explain it. Although, interestingly, from this angle, you can really see how crooked that last post is, which probably doesn't help things any. But anyway, moving on. All right, as I mentioned earlier, this was kind of a failed experiment, at least so far. So, had a tree fall back there and needed to cut up some fairly large trunks. So I thought, hey, those look like a really good thickness for skinnies. And then I thought, what if I made it reconfigurable by just, you know, having them be standalone cylinders of wood? Great idea, I guess. I don't know. Unfortunately, even as short as I made these, especially some of these down here at the end, they're still too unstable. And if you get a little bit off on the edge, they like to flip over on you, which, yeah, not a lot of fun. Probably not good for your rims either. So I haven't been riding this a lot lately. As you saw, I skipped it at least once in the video or in the first person part. So yeah, I don't love this, but you know, it might work better on a hard surface where they're supported properly. We'll see. I might have to try that sometime. But anyway, that's all I have to say about that. And that brings us to the hip bone, so-called, because it's a bit of a hip jump and because there's an animal carcass nearby. So this is another pretty sketchy feature. And it's a little bit like the Tacoma Narrows in that some days I've got it and I can ride this and it feels really good, and other days I just don't got it and it feels awful. So part of that is probably the design. I'm still not sure I've got the angle for the corner quite right there. Part of it is, and you can see I've done a little bit of work on this. Down here at the base, I had a smaller, actually I might have had that exact piece of wood down here at the base of the ramp, and that created kind of a step between these two. And so when your rear wheel hit that, it wanted to pull your front wheel down and kind of wanted you to nose over as you were going off the end of the jump. So that didn't feel real good. So as you can see, I've done a little bit of reshaping down here, built a wooden ramp, kind of embedded one of the smaller pieces of wood in that to give it a little bit of extra structure, because this keeps eroding away. As you can see, the dirt is still really dry here, and it's not packing. So yeah, that's that feature. The other thing about this one is the landing is a little narrow. You can see that tree is on the outside, and then there's a tree, smaller tree, and if you hit that one, it's actually not a big deal. It'll probably just bend over, but it's still not fun to get whacked in the face with a tree. So there's that one on the inside, and if you hit the line just right, it's fine. But if you don't hit the line just right, you end up center punching that big tree on the outside. Not that I've ever done that. So yeah, I don't know. This might be a little bit easier to ride if I would take out one or both of those trees, but you know, once you take a tree, you can't put it back. So I try to leave stuff as long as I can, and if I just decide I really can't stand it, then I'll take it. But and you can also kind of see I'm not really going off the end of the jump here. A lot of times I'm kind of coming off the inside here. So yeah, that's also not ideal. Part of the reason I put this here, in case you were wondering, is there's a bit of a mound right there and it's kind of in the middle of the corner, so I thought, hip jump. And then I had this stump that was sitting out in the front yard. You might have seen that last year, and I didn't like it out in the front yard. It looked kind of bad, and it actually, pieces of it got cut off and stolen shortly after I bought this property. So wanted to move it back here where it was a little bit out of sight, out of mind, and wouldn't bother anybody. So overall, this is still a pretty fun feature. It's challenging, which was sort of the point. I'm not real good at hip jumps, and so this has made me get better, but still a work in progress. All right, here we are back out in the front yard, just taking a look at another little feature. When I moved in, there was this stump in the front yard, and I kept looking at it thinking that would make a great jump, and I was right. So I came out here one day and waited for the car to go past. All right, and brought my chainsaw. Actually, it was 2 days because my chainsaw ran out of battery halfway through, but did a little bit of reshaping, made this ramp here, and then just for fun, I made a little bit steeper ramp over here. I suppose theoretically you could ride that third piece over there, but I don't recommend it because it's got a pretty sharp transition at the bottom there. So kind of a progressive feature. As you get more comfortable with it, you can ride the steeper one and maybe get a little bit more air. So let's go do that. All right, we are down to just a couple features left, and neither one of them are new for this year, so this should go quick, which is good because we are rapidly running out of daylight. So this is just a little skinny. It's a 2x6 piece of plywood, a couple of cinder blocks, and hey, you got a skinny. And again, this one is movable. You can always just throw it off into the weeds if you want to and mow, and then it's not in the way. As I said, I don't actually do that very often. You can see it trims up pretty well with a weed whacker, so it's really not that big a deal. I'm a little surprised how well the plywood has held up. I don't think that's treated, so I was kind of expecting that to rot, and I don't know, maybe it has, but it still works, so I keep riding it. And speaking of riding it, let's go do that. And with that, we come to the very last feature we're going to talk about today. This one is another really super low effort thing. It's just a 6x6 block with a 2x8? 2x6, 2x8, I don't know. 2x8, because it's wider than the 2x6s that are underneath it. The only thing I did this year, a little bit different, is I took some old pieces of wood and stuck them underneath to just raise it up a little bit and make it a little bit more difficult. I don't actually like this that much. It slides around too easy on the wood, and then it gets really sketchy and it'll tip over off to the side, and yeah, it's not good. So this is probably going to go at some point. It's fun enough with just the regular planks, so yeah, it's all good. Let's go ride it and finish this out. All right, and that's pretty much it for this trail and it for the daylight, as you can see. So there's not a whole lot more to say. This is kind of the remnant of the original loop. Originally it was just the strip and then back around to here and so on. Just because the first fall I had this, that was all I had time to build. And so this area in here actually got tilled up because it was kind of bumpy like this and really miserable to ride over. So I just tilled it up, flattened it out. It's a lot nicer now. And then there's the mound up here with the stump in it that was loads of fun to get out of the way. So you can see it there. It's still high enough that it catches on the mower sometimes when it goes through, I think because the dirt has settled. So yeah, and then that's it. That is the end of the trail. There is no more. Well, except for the trail we didn't look at back there. That's not done yet, but that's all for the finished trail. So, hope you enjoyed watching this. Hope maybe it was helpful for your own backyard trail building, and thanks for watching. So that's probably a pretty accurate depiction of how this... Ugh.